Jesi milostivi čovekoljubiv Bog i tebi slavu uznosimo, Otcu i Sinu i Svetome Duhu, sada i u vekove vekova.
In a world of shadows and secrets untold, where primeval stories make the brave go cold, mighty gods on high and realms below, whispers of legends that shape each soul. And nightmarish dreams, cryptids lurking, nothing's as it seems. Giants walking, angels and demons fight. Only truth can bring the light. Through the echoes of time, the tales unfold. Mysteries arise as the prophecies are foretold. From valiant knights to buried treasure, this podcast brings nothing but pleasure. Welcome to myth, mysteries and majesty. Study with us and don't be a travesty. Theology, mythology, fantasy and horror. From dungeons and dragons to Skyrim and Mordor. The powers haunt the evening in gothic castles where they're screaming. Wizards cast spells in their towers tonight, exploiting enigmas hidden from our sight. Archaeologists make excavations deep of the ancient tombs where pharaohs sleep. In the dust of ages we chronicles keep, storytelling's power of monsters that creep. Mysteries and majesty is the place for you to learn about this haunted space. From scholarship to manuscripts of old, unlock the secrets of wisdom and gold.
Blessed Friday, everyone. Welcome to episode 204. Today, I have an honor to welcome another VIP on the podcast, Sir L.A. Marzulli. It is my honor to welcome you for the first time on our 3M Humble podcast, sir. Can we please start by you introducing yourself, your work, research, and all those beautiful skulls and posters you have behind you?
I'm L.A. Marzulli. I'm an author, filmmaker. There are 15 books. 14 of them are available. Number 15 comes out in March. It's my first novel in 20 years, and we're very excited about it. Charisma is my publisher. We also have 33 films in our catalog that I've hosted all 33. I've directed about 23 of them. So directed, assistant directed. So, and I've edited about 20 of them. So we're actually working. We just finished a film on the Shroud of Turin, and that's our latest film with my business partner, Gil Zimmerman. So that's kind of what I do.
Yeah, you've been a very prolific and a very productive author and filmmaker for decades. Many people have heard about you, especially people who love researching the same things we like here on 3M Podcast when it comes to biblical theology, mixing with ancient Near East and fringe stuff. So this is something we love in the audience. So when I was thinking about inviting you, first I didn't know what chance would I have, because I was assuming you're a very busy man since you're very popular. So when you accept, I wanted to thank you for showing us grace and love in that way and being with us here tonight. Mr. Marzulli, for tonight, we'll be dealing with one of your books that you wrote. And this book it was written in 2013. You titled it On the Trail on the Nephilim. Can we start maybe by you telling us what led you to start even researching about the trail of the Nephilim that leads us and connects us between biblical Nephilim and the North American Nephilim?
Well, this all starts with my battle buddy, Russ Dizdar. We were at 90 conferences together in a span of about 10 years. And Russ passed away a few years ago. Really miss him. really miss him. And that never should have happened, but that's another story. So I'm getting this is around 2012, maybe 2011. I mean, I'd have to go back. I don't know. It's a long time ago. And Russ calls me up and he goes, "Hey, LA, do you know, you're headed to Ohio. Do you know where you're going?" I go, "Yeah, Russ, I'm speaking at this conference." He starts laughing. You have to know Russ, because when he started laughing with that, he knew something that you didn't. And he's going to spring it on you. Sure enough, he goes, "Are you by your computer?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Google fallen angels in the Ohio Valley, the Nephilim Chronicles." And I go, "What?" And he says it again. Fallen Angels in the Ohio Valley, the Nephilim Chronicles by Fritz Zimmerman. And I can't even believe this. So I Google it. There's the book. I go, "Oh my gosh, Russ." So I get the book. Next day I have a 5-hour, 6-hour plane ride. So the book is coming to my house here in the Santa Monica Mountains, but I've got the PDF. I've got the Kindle version to read or whatever on the plane. So I'm doing that. So by the time the plane lands, I have sped read most of the book. And I'm like going, "You've got to be kidding me." So I'm at the conference and my driver is taking me. It sounds so snobbish. Yes, my driver, of course, is taking me from point A to point B. Thank you. But so my driver is taking me from the hotel to the conference. So I know where we are. I've never been there before, right? And this is my first time in Newark-Ohio. That's how the locals say it. Instead of Newark, Ohio, it's Newark-Ohio. So I'm already having fun. Sorry. So I go to my driver. I go, "Hey, do you know where this Great Circle Mound thing is? Are we near it?" "Oh, we go by it every day." I go, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, it's coming up here on the right-hand side after about a mile." So I'm like looking out the window, like, okay. Sure enough, I see the sign, Newark Earthworks, Great Circle Mound. I go, "Look, I got free time tomorrow after 1:30. Can you drop me off here?" He goes, "Sure." Now it's Sunday. It's a beautiful fall day. And he drops me off in the parking lot. There's nobody around. Nobody around. Parking lot is empty. And so I had looked at the pictures and read about the Circle Mound. So there's a 4-foot asphalt pathway that leads up from the parking lot to the Great Circle Mound. The Great Circle Mound, to give you an idea, is 1,220 feet, roughly 1,200 feet in diameter. It's huge. There's a moat that goes around the interior of the whole thing. And the dirt, the pile, the mound, it's not this little, it's like 20 feet high in some places. So this is a lot of work. So I get there, I'm walking up the asphalt path. To the left, I'm looking at the mound because it's, that's where it is. And I'm going, "Oh my gosh." When I get to the top, it's level. To the right of me is the museum, it's closed. And to the left is the gateway, the opening to the Circle Mound. So I'm walking up to the Circle Mound and I stop in the gateway. And at this moment, I am hyperventilating. I am frozen in time. I am hyperventilating. I'm like this. And my eyes are darting around. And the Holy Spirit's all over me. And I realize I am looking at the rest of my life. This is it. I'm looking at the rest of my life. And that was the nexus that started the whole On the Trail of the Nephilim series, all the elongated skull research that we did, all the Watchers films that we did. This was everything. I mean, this was the starting point. Thank you, Fritz Zimmerman, who, by the way, Fritz is in, I don't know, 5 or 6 of our films on the Trail of the Nephilim. And, it's all his fault that I'm doing this. So Fritz did not go to Peru. We did go to Peru because of the elongated skulls. That's the starting point. That's 9 films. And I think, 3 or 4 books later. It's a corpus of work. It's a lot of work. And not to mention all the DNA testing that we did. We want to thank our anonymous donors who gave us a boatload of money to do that. Because you just don't take a team down to Peru. You got to have backing unless you're a millionaire. and we had backing. And then all the labs, we had 3 different labs doing the sequencing. And the little baby skull right there behind me, we tested that at 3 different labs. It all came back the same thing. U2E1, which is a Eastern European haplogroup. It rewrites history, but the academics don't like rewriting history because they're all isolationists and Darwinists at the 3-hour discussion. But yeah, that's the starting point. That is the starting point. Russ Disdar's phone call, and then the rest was history. Thanks, Russ. Wherever you are, Russ, and I know where you are. Thanks. Say hi to everybody up there.
Thank you so much for that fascinating story. I want to just say a couple of things before we start diving into chapter 1 with the Ohio Mounts. First, our friend PJ Bow, he says that you were instrumental in helping him understand the ancient alien deception when he was that he was involved in when he wasn't safe. So you already have a big fan, PJ Bow. He's a very good brother. He's making tabletop Christian games for free and sharing with people. He's an amazing brother that was my guest many times. So you have a big fan, Mr. Marzulli.
Well, I'm first of all, the honor is all mine when I read stuff like this, because I'm in a vacuum. I mean, we're not doing conferences anymore, but when we would do conferences, people would come up, and that was like, oh my gosh, we're making this kind of an impact on people, and it's all the Lord's doing. I didn't sign up for this. If you had told me 45 years ago when I was 30 years old that I'd be doing what I was doing, I would have run out of the room. Like, I don't want anything to do with this, right? But, the Lord carried me through, and here we are. And, I do a daily show every day on our YouTube channel. But but thank you for those kind words. I really appreciate it.
You know what's fascinating? I was reminded of the words of late Dr. Michael Heiser, who would go to the UFO conferences and then spread the gospel by using the UFO themes. And then I'm reminded of your partner and co-worker, Dr. John Burton. He would also be into fringe, but he would also like, here's the gospel, here's the biblical theology, and also you. So I see this also like Brian Godava, like he would be writing epic fantasy, but he was like all with biblical motifs. So I see once when you mentioned how God put you on this route that you didn't plan for your life, I can see that God can use us who are nerds. But when I say nerds, I mean in a good way. We like researching, like books, like all this academic stuff, like supernatural, like fringe stuff. And God can use us when we talk to either pagans or people who don't serve God, don't believe God. By having common interest and common hobbies, we can get close to them and tell them about God. So that's amazing. Okay, we have more highs and more compliments coming in the chat, so we'll leave that for a little bit later. But Mr. Marzulli, can we start please with chapter 1 and the mounts? As we know, North America is filled with the mounts, but there's a special one, if I can put it that way. It's the octagon and circle mounts in Ohio. How is this leading us to, or at least helping us connect biblical Nephilim with the potential journey that the Nephilim, once when they were kicked out from the Middle East, how if they made it to North America, and then we see all these ancient mounts, they're predating the natives. How can we connect the two?
Well, first of all, you don't have to call me Mr. Marzulli. Excuse me, that's so formal. Just LA is fine. We have a film. This is how backlogged we are. So we filmed this 2 years ago in Ohio on the Octagon Mound. But instead, the Lord redirected our steps, and we did 10 films on the UFO phenomena with my business partner, Gil Zimmerman. And then, it's not there. Where is my, actually, I don't have it. Then we did a film on the Shroud of Turin, and that's the last film we did. So that's the Shroud. I mean, this is what I mean. I mean, it's 33 films. We have an hour. So we did it. Gil and I did it. We spent a year on this. So we went to Ohio with Fritz Zimmerman, and Heather Coons is an archaeologist. Dottie, I can't remember her last name. I can't believe I can't remember her last name. Dottie Isley, duh. And she's a mathematician at the collegiate level. She teaches math at the collegiate level. And then we had Tim Wolf, who's a world-class surveyor, and yours truly. And the reason for this, and I can't tell you, I can't give you the goods yet. I can't tell you what I discovered. So here's the deal. You've got the academics. You mentioned some of their names. They're great people. They spend a lot of time in the libraries, and I do too, to a point. But then I'm out on the field, and then I'm discovering things. When I was over across the pond in Europe, I discovered something, and I won't talk about it because it's in the film. I discovered something that has profound implications, and this is why I really need to, I'm looking at my edit suite over there. It's got a 40-inch curved monitor. It's got the Mac Studio with 8 terabytes of hard space. I mean, it's fully loaded. And I just waved to it, and I haven't worked on it in probably 3 months. Shame on me. I mean, I get that. And I really need to be, in fact, maybe when this interview's over, maybe because this particular film is complex. And I have had 3 false starts with it already, where I've tried to edit it and then just walked away going, oh my gosh. And it has to do with the octagon mound. To circle back to your question, has to do with the octagon mound. So what is the octagon mound, and why should we care? Well, the octagon mound is a little itty-bitty octagon about this big, right? That someone drew on a piece of paper with a protractor, a ruler, a pencil, and they knew geometry. No. The octagon mound encompasses 51 acres of land in the Ohio Valley, in Newark, Ohio. 51. Get that in your head. 51 acres. And it is not an equal octagon, equal 8 sides. It's an unequal octagon, which means 2 of the sides are unequal. And it's got gateways between the sides that are open. So if they were connected, they'd be like this, but it's not. There's gateways, which correspond to the solstices and the equinoxes. And there's a gateway like this, which connects the octagon mound to the circle mound, which is 20 acres. And there are mounds, it's an observation platform, at the back of the circle mound. So when you're standing on that platform and you're looking down that gateway to the octagon mound, the moon every 18 and a half years comes down, and it's a lunar standstill and stands in that gateway every 18 and a half years. Let's walk through it. Native Americans did not know anything about the 18 and a half year metonic cycle, lunar cycle. So the moon is in this cycle. In other words, it comes up here, it sets here. Next day it comes up here, and then it sets here. It moves all the time. So in order to track that in the ancient world, you would have to sit there and look at the moon every single night for 18 and a half years. And you don't know it's an 18 and a half year metonic. You don't know. You don't know how the cycle that it's 18 and a half years. You don't know that. You just know it's coming up and going down, but you don't know that it repeats. So you'd have to figure that out. You'd have to crunch the data, record the data, crunch the data, and then go, oh my gosh, look, we were here before. How would you know that? There were no computers thousands of years ago. The octagon mound, I believe, is about 4,000 years old. Modern day archaeologists put it much closer. It's not. I think it's way back there, but that's my opinion. It is post-flood, not pre-flood. It's post-flood. The moat, and this is our research. This is why academia is great, but then you got to do your own research. We're the first people that broke the story. That guess what? The moat that goes around the octagon. We hired a surveyor, and he went into the circle mound. And guess what? That moat in the circle mound, it's all connected. The octagon, the small circle, and then the great circle mound. It was all one part of the same site. And the circle mound, that moat so you would walk into the gateway, which I did, and that whole thing, there are no trees, all the torch lights. Oh my gosh, it must have been mystical. And then the fallen angel comes down on the altar. Are you kidding me? On what they call there was an altar of sacrifice there. The moat is dead level, basically level within 4 or 5 inches. And this thing, 1,200 feet going around like this. Are you kidding me? How was that done? Nobody knows. Oh, Native Americans built this, because the alternative to it is a supernatural worldview. And because you're a Darwinist and you don't believe in God or the supernatural or any type of morality, right or wrong, there are no moral absolutes. That's what I'm trying to say. So what works here might not work 1,000 years ago, where we know from the Ten Commandments that there are moral absolutes. End of story. But you don't believe that as a Darwinist. So you can't have. It's got to be the Native Americans who did this, because anything else is too woo-woo. And I get that. I totally understand that. So the octagon mound, unequal octagon, and the Metonic cycle, every 18 and a half years, comes down and sits in the gateway. Just sits in the gateway. Are you kidding me? Native Americans had no idea of the 18 and a half year lunar cycle. Native Americans did not have geometry. And of course, if I say that, oh, you're a racist. Well, wait a minute. I'm Italian. Okay, so let's pick on me. I'm Italian. So I'm going to tell you that, Giuseppe Marzulli, my great-great-great-grandfather, invented the airplane. Yeah, because I say so. Oh, I can't prove that. But that's what I'm going with. Giuseppe Marzulli, 120 years ago, invented the airplane before the Wright brothers. I'm just making that up. There's no evidence of it. Welcome to modern day archaeology. Oh, the Shawnee built the octagon mound. Excuse me. The Shawnee have no oral tradition of the octagon mound. It's not there. Native Americans did not have geometry. That's not a racist statement. It's just like me saying that I built the airplane because I want credit for it. Well, we know that I didn't build the airplane. The Wright brothers built the first airplane. The Shawnee had nothing to do with the octagon mound. They only come in to the territory, 400 or 500 years before. Chief Wallace goes on record saying, oh, we didn't do this. We just took care of the Great Serpent Mound. This is all connected. So what are we looking at here? Why did they insist on this narrative? And if you push back against it, you're a pseudo-archaeologist, you're a racist. They just label you, but they never sit down and discuss the issue. We know from the Book of Enoch, which is a pseudepigraphical book written and attributed to Enoch, that a fallen angel by the name of Sariel came down and handed the course of the moon to human beings. Well, can't believe that. Well, why can't we believe that? Why? Because you say we can't believe it? Because you don't believe in the supernatural? So that discounts millions, if not billions, of people's worldview just because you say so? Because you're an ardent Darwinist and there is no God or supernatural or miracles or prophecy or anything else in your worldview. But in my worldview, that is my worldview. And that's how I run. And I walk in it daily. I walk in it daily. So you're not going to discount me. Now who's the racist, right? Now who's clobbering me over the head because I don't agree with your ridiculous Darwinian theory, which is the theory that's never been produced. In fact, when Ben Stein sits down with Richard Dawkins, one of the premier evolutionists of the 20th, 21st century, in his groundbreaking film, Expelled, No Intelligence Allowed, and he goes, where did the self-replicating first self-replicating molecule come from? And he's got no answer. Dawkins has no answer. Well, I told you, no one knows. And he's so effete about it. He's just I told you, no one knows. How dare you question me? Well, how did it happen, Ben Stein? Well, and it's a lifeline, an intellectual lifeline. But I suppose it could have happened this way. Far, far away in a galaxy, whatever, a grace of aliens somehow by some Darwinian means of evolution, rose to the side and then seeded us here. That's panspermia. He's making it up. He has no idea of what this is, where we are, how any of this happened. None. Zippo. Nada. He has no idea of any of this. But he's going to tell you all about it, doggone it. And if you believe anything else what he says, then you're a racist or you're an ignoramus. You're a Neanderthal because you don't believe in the Darwinian evolutionary theory. And, Watson and Crick, the co-discoverers of DNA, that just blows the whole thing out of the water. Because that just didn't fall out of some tree someplace, and it just didn't somehow miraculously appear out of billions of years of, probiotic slime. It's just hysterical. What these guys believe in is just a joke. No, there's a creator because it's very, very complex. The DNA molecular structure, very complex. And that shows the handiwork of a creator. The Bible tells you in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God, he was with God in the beginning. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. Now you can believe that, or you can believe the fallacy of Darwinism. And the reason why we can believe that scripture, in the beginning was the Word, because of the thread of prophecy, which goes from Genesis to Revelation. Obviously, there's someone outside space and time as we know it, which is calling out with great specificity the end before the beginning and the beginning before the end. And he does so all throughout his word. So when we get to John, and John saying the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and bam, he created all things were made through him. There you go. I mean, it's not rocket science. You know, you can tell that to a 13-year-old, you go, okay, I get it, the Word. Yeah, he was with God. He was God. All things were created by him. Done. Or you can believe that somehow, and what I love about, Noah Harari, I won't even get into him. God bless him. But, all he does is keep adding zeros. That's all these guys do. Well, instead of, 1 billion, now it's 400 billion years ago. No one even conceived that number. I have trouble counting to 100. I'm just joking. But you know what I mean? I mean, adding up my golf score, it's like, right? So they just keep adding numbers, and they figure, well, if we push this thing back far enough, somehow it's going to work out. Of course, it doesn't. It doesn't work out. It never does. But if you're an atheist, if you're anti-God, if you don't believe in a creator, if you don't believe in any absolutes, if you don't believe in Jesus, if you don't believe in this, which is the photographic proof, forensic proof of the greatest event of all of history, the resurrection of the God-man, Jesus, and here's the face of it, right? That's why he left it, because he knew in the 20th century, they would invent, actually the 19th century, they'd invent the camera. And then in 1898, Secunda Pia would take a picture. Look at the scourge marks. Look at the scourge marks. And it's not a 15th century forgery. That's been debunked. How many times does it have to get debunked before, Google and all these other, people that have an axe to grind stop telling us that it's been proven again to be a fake? It's not. We know now that it's 2,000 years old. It's never been duplicated. No one has any idea how it was created, except for a burst of light. Welcome to the Holy Spirit. So that's my answer to the first question. The octagon mound, advanced geometry, knowledge of an 18-and-a-half-year lunar precession, the equinoxes, and in our film, which I haven't, there it is over there, I've got to get going, but in our film on this, we sat down with Dorothy Easley, okay? And she's a, mathematician at the collegiate level. And she's got an 8.5 byte piece of paper, and she's showing us that this is not a very simple octagon. This is a very difficult octagon. You need to know geometry. What protractor are you using out in a 51-acre octagon? And I guess you could take 2 pieces of wood, 2 tree limbs, right? 2 saplings, and cut them down and create a protractor. But you still got to know geometry. You still have to know geometry. It's there. It's there, and it defies the prevailing narrative. And I take umbrage with the fact that these guys ride roughshod over this whole thing, and whatever they say goes, and any dissenting views is immediately eliminated in both archaeological circles, anthropological circles, and in museums. And I am so sick of it, you have no idea. Because one paradigm is the paradigm that's held. No other paradigm is allowed. No intelligence is allowed. You can't question the validity of what they say. Because if you do, I'll circle back. You're a racist. You're a racist. You're a racist. You're a pseudo-archaeologist. You're a pseudo-scientist. So I'll end on this rant by saying this. So when I hire a surveyor to go to the Great Circle Mound and survey the interior of the moat to see how level it is, I suppose I'm a pseudoscientist. When I take 58 samples from the skulls of Peru and hand them to 3 different labs in the United States, 2 in the United States, 1 in Canada, that's pseudoscientist. I'm a pseudoscientist. So let me get this straight. So the DNA machine that's sequencing this stuff, we can't do this because he's a pseudoscientist. Really? A pseudo-archaeologist, really? Seriously? Because we were the ones, and thank you, Rick Woodward, our anthropologist, who showed that these have to be genetic. We have a film on this. I'm a trail of a Nephilim number 6. It has to be genetic. It's not cranial deformation, but these people are in an echo chamber and they repeat the same story over and over and over again. Truth will prevail. Truth will prevail. Thank you.
Thank you, LA, for that context. I just want to add one thing before I ask you about Robert Mirabal, and then we'll switch to the Peruvian skulls, and I would like to hear about the DNA samples. Namely, I was listening and watching months ago on the Answers in Genesis YouTube page, how our brothers and sisters who are scientists and biologists and anthropologists, and they're all into genetics and whatnot, they were taking samples from North American tribes and as well as ancient buildings and whatnot, and they found out that what you just said, it confirms that the natives are not the original natives of North America. They've been here based on different tribes. Some tribes have been here 500 years, some 1,000 years, some 1,500 years, but barely any of them came before Christ, meaning that they're not the original inhabitants of this continent. And that helps your theory, because here, yes, they're Christians, but they're scientists. Also, I wanted to make that what I said and what you said about the natives. When it comes to chapter 3, to make a small bridge, if you can please briefly summarize chapter 3 when you had the opportunity to speak with Mr. Robert Mirabal, who is one of the natives. Can you please tell us about their legends and oral tradition, how their version of the sky deities matches First Enoch and Genesis 6?
Yeah, you know, someone sent me that video. It's called Stiltwalker. You can go on YouTube and Google Robert Mirabal Stiltwalker. It's great. And I remember watching that going, you got to be kidding. So I finally got a hold of him, and he was willing to answer some questions. He had heard this from his grandfathers, and he's basically quoting Genesis 6, you know, and almost verbatim. You know, the sky gods came down, saw the women that they were beautiful, and took wives. They're giants in the land. And then he shows this. Look, we've got Native Americans talking about this, and, you know, Native Americans, First Nation people, really, in a lot of ways, in many ways, they just got the shaft in ways that are unprecedented. Their land was taken from them. Their language and culture was destroyed by the white man. And, you know, in a lot of cases, it's never been rectified. In many cases, it's never been rectified. The reservation system is corrupt as all get out. How do I know that? Chief Joseph Riverwind and others who have told me. And, you know, they were told, well, that really didn't happen. So now who's the racist? Like when we look at in the beginning of the 20th century, last century, where archaeologists said, oh, Native Americans just built all these mounds. They just forgot that they had done so. So now who's the racist? Where Native Americans were saying, no, we didn't do this. It was here when we got here. Native Americans tell us about the six-fingered red-haired giants, the Sitka, right? That we know from Sarawinamukka. And I've been to Lovelock Cave. Sarawinamukka talking about the Sitka, the red-haired cannibalistic giants. Chief Joseph Riverwind talking about the six-fingered red-haired cannibalistic giants, all over from the East Coast, all down into here. We know they were here. There was a woman, she's like 80-something now. She's in a tribe, the Tikla, up in Alaska. And you know, she had encounters with what she would call the Kushtaka, the hairy man, the Bigfoot. So I mean, it's all there, and you know, it's like, how do we fix what was? I didn't have anything to do with this. My family came over here in 1898, so I had nothing to do with any of this. Didn't take anybody's land, didn't do anything. So how do we make it right? And there's no easy answer to that. I don't know. I don't know how to make it right. Maybe it's never made right until the Lord comes back and he makes it right. But, you know, what was done to First Nation people, my gosh, you know, but, you know, you can also say, on the other hand, this has been going on throughout the world for centuries. You know, the Romans come in, they kill everybody, they cut everybody off of slavery, they take their land. I mean, it's just, and those are my ancestors, the Romans. I mean, this is, you know, the Visigoths, the Vikings. I mean, you know, where does it stop? It doesn't. And this is the problem with humanity. But what was done in this country is just it's and it's still going on some level. And it's not that long ago. It's not like it's 1,000 years. Well, or you look at the Turks marching the Armenians to their death. Nobody talks about that, the Armenian genocide. Nobody talks about that. What is it? 1.2 million people starved systematically. And if you say anything about the Holocaust, oh, that never happened. 6 million? Most people don't realize there were 20,000 centers, concentration camps, holding ports, holding places, work camps, labor camps, 20,000 of them in the Third Reich. It's not just Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen. It's this whole system to systematically enslave and kill anybody who disagreed with Hitler. Yeah, 6 million Jews, but there were a lot of Catholics, there were a lot of priests, there were a lot of ministers, there were a lot of people who spoke up against, and off they go. And then you look at the Soviet Union, what was it, 65 million in the gulags? This is, Mandami, right? He just got elected over there. People have no idea what communism really is. They have no idea that when these people get into power, just look at the former Soviet Union. 65 million people gone in the gulags. Chinese, same thing. 80 million, 90, 100 million. North Korea, same thing. I mean, this is, when you take God out of the equation, it's over. And that's what all these places did the same thing. Germany took the Christian God out. They worship the gods of antiquity. Russia, there is no God. China, there is no God. They're all a bunch of atheists. That's what you get. You take God out of the equation, that's what you get. You get a bloodbath.
Yeah, speaking of the Ottomans, between 14th and 19th century, my own people, Serbs, and when you say you're Italian, I was so glad to hear that because we're neighbors. Only the Adriatic Sea divides us. So I can fly from my country to your native country within a couple of hours. So yeah, between 14th and 19th century, for 5 centuries, the Turkish Ottomans would come and steal our children and then raise them as Muslim warriors who would be called Janissars. And then when they would be adults, they'll be, just fighting and fighting for their own emperor and fighting even against our own people, but they'll be their own blood. But that's how they will be, programmed when it comes to religious and mental propaganda. Also, speaking in World War II, I fully agree. It's not just the Jews. 1 million of my people also died. My grandpa was in Austrian concentration camp in prison. Wow. He ran away when he was a kid. I talk sometimes about these things on podcasts. It blows me away because otherwise my dad wouldn't be born, I wouldn't be born, and now we wouldn't have this discussion. So this all happens, like you said, when you either serve a fallen god or a crooked version of a god, or when you don't have deity at all, you're your own deity. So these are the atrocities that people have been dealing since.
It just follows, yeah. It's
since Cain and Abel. Thank you for that. Background, LA. Now we're switching to the Peruvian because we don't have so much time. We're switching to the Peruvian expedition, one of the most interesting and fascinating parts of this volume 1 book that you wrote. And again, this is information from 12 years ago. So I'm interested if you can please summarize your experience dealing with Peruvian skulls. And back then, when you were finishing this book, you didn't have DNA samples because you're saying that you're just coming back to the States, finishing book, you take so much photos, but you still do not have DNA samples done. And now 12 years later, I'm just curious what the data is showing because, for all the doubting Thomases, either in the live chat or in the days and weeks, they'll be watching these, they'll have questions. Well, what did the data show? What did the science shows when he talks about those elongated skulls behind you from Peru?
Well, here's the book, On the Trail of the Nephilim. It's an oversized book. We're actually almost out of print. We've got to redo some of it. But we went to Peru and we had a husband and wife team that donated a boatload of money to us for the DNA evidence. We took multiple trips to Peru. Mondo Gonzalez wrote the archaeological paper, which was submitted to the Minister of Culture at Peru. And we finally got the permits. It took 3 years. So we got the permits. We flew down with a team, Richard Shaw, filmed everything. Chase Klosky tagged and bagged everything. Mondo and I extracted the DNA. These are samples. They're not real. They're one-to-one models created by the late Joe Taylor, showing, well, they're models, one-to-one models created by the late Joe Taylor, and he passed away, like I said. So I don't think anybody's doing that anymore. We took 58 samples, Mondo and I took 58 samples. Out of the 58, about 28 of them sequenced. Out of the 28 sequences, 18 of them showed a Middle Eastern European connection. That rewrites history. So if you want to see that, we're completely transparent. We have a film. It's On the Trail of the Nephilim #6. So it's streaming.lamarzulli.net or lamarzulli.com if you want to watch the DVD of that. So we went down and we did all that. Thank you, Brian Forrester. Thank you, Senior Juan Navarro. Senior Juan's no longer with us. He had the Paracas History Museum. We unwrapped the baby skull. It was let me bring it over here. It was a 1,935-year-old skull. How do we know that? We did C14 dating. Look at the eyes. Look at the orbits. 25 to 30% larger than a human being. Look at the elongation. This is not the result of cranial deformation. It's not. So how do we know that? Well, we have an anthropologist on our team, and I love it. Some of these naysayers, some of these people have no idea what they're talking about. They just don't like what we say. So, they're gonna disparage us and call us names, and I won't mention their name, but these people do, and they'll call us like, a band of goons or a band of loons, something like that. So they never really go and look at at the evidence. They never look at. Hold on, I just lost you here. Give me a second. Where did you go? Hello? Give me a second. Okay, there you are. So all they do is call us names, and that's the status quo. So let's walk through it. This is an elongated skull. It's called the cinnamon skull. All right. First of all, we have the man is now deceased. We had an optometrist who looked at this. It's in the film, On the Trail DNA #6. And he examines these skulls and he goes, well, the orbits of the eyes are 25% larger than a normal human being. So how was that done? How can you cradle headboard? How can you bind the skull, bind it up and somehow make the orbits 25% larger? How do you do that? Why is it that the zygomatic arch right here and here is very, very pronounced? We have a surgeon in the film. These are all, it's a multidisciplinary approach. We have surgeons, medical doctors, archaeologists, anthropologists, chiropractors, and other people on the record saying that whatever this is genetic. It was not the result of cranial deformation. So Brian Forrester pointed this out, that there should be a sagittal suture from here running back like this. There's not. There's what a suture looks like right here. Okay? That's a suture right there. That suture should be splitting the parietal right here, but it doesn't do that. It should be going straight back like this. It's not there. Not even a vestige of it. No trace. But the kicker, and this is from our anthropologist, Rick Woodward. So when Rick looked at the skulls, we sent him all the skulls that Joe Taylor had molded. This is the foramen magnum right here. The foramen magnum, well, let me walk through it. You see this white area right here? That white area is the clay that Joe put inside the skull so it would hold a dowel. So the foramen magnum is right here. This is where your skeleton, your spine, goes into the brain with all that cabling right there. Well, the foramen magnum should be here. Should be right there in the center of the skull. It's pushed all the way back to the occipital plate. And if it's any further back, it's outside the skull. I think you can see what I'm talking about. You can't manipulate that through the use of cranial deformation, cradle headboarding. And we were the first people ever to bring that to light. Nobody else looked at that. There's not a paper that I've ever seen that talks about it. All they say is cranial deformation, cranial headboarding. They just parrot the same thing in an echo chamber. But our anthropologist, Rick Woodward, took the bottom of the skull and said, we got a problem here, because that foramen magnum should be here, should be in the center of a skull to balance the skull, and it's not. So we know we're actually doing more research, as money and time permits. We'll see where it goes. Hopefully we'll have a peer review paper out maybe next year. We'll see what happens. The DNA proves that there's a Middle East origin. That rewrites history. The genetic, the DNA that we also did, we couldn't get nuclear DNA out of it. So why is that? But the haplogroups are pointing to a Middle Eastern connection. That rewrites history. There's not supposed to be anybody, and these are all pre-Columbian. So that no way that should be there, yet it's there. But they don't like that because it points to a couple of things. It points to the validity of oral tradition from Native Americans. It points to the validity of what we read in our scriptures, that there was a mixing of the seed, Genesis 3:15, between fallen angels and the earthly women, human women, creating a hybrid being known as the Nephilim. These are not necessarily giants. These could be the Horites. We don't know. More testing needs to be done. But the doors are shut, and academia has blindfolds on. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to see it. They don't want to hear it. Go away. We had a lead, I won't mention any names or the state. We had a lead of bones that were found in a museum. And they called a friend of mine. They actually called Fritz Zimmerman. And we were all going, we're on the next plane. All we want to do is take DNA samples, do some measurements, because they were big bones. And just like that, powers that be got wind of it, whole thing was shut down. Just like that. Bam, just like that. What are they so afraid of? Why are they so afraid? Because the truth will prove that this is one of my bylines. The truth will prove that there is a hidden history that's been deliberately obfuscated from the peoples of the world, that reflects the biblical prophetic narrative, points back to a supernatural incursion of interdimensional entities known as fallen angels who produced a hybrid being, i.e. in the seed war and the Genesis 6, and also afterwards, you had other incursions. And then when Joshua and Caleb go in and conquer the promised land, there is a diaspora of these Nephilim tribes. And I've been on the trail. I've never been to Cyprus, but I have been to Gozo and Malta and Sardinia and the island of Sicily and Majorca, and then up into Spain, Menga, Spain, the largest dolmen, and then into Portugal, where there's a site there called Cromic on Mandres. It's actually older than Stonehenge, England. And then the 80,000 standing stones in Karnak, France. And then in the England, where the Silbury Hill looks just like the mounds that we see in Ohio. Oh, there's no connection there, LA. You're a pseudo-archaeologist. Really? There's a connection, folks, because they came over here. And then in Americas Stonehenge, we have 2 films on this. See what I mean? We have an hour. I mean, I've already, it's frustrating because people think that they can get this in an hour. All I'm trying to do is whet your appetite. We've been on the trail. We've produced books. We've produced films. You got to do your homework. If you don't want to buy it, fine. I don't care. Lord's blessed us. Yeah, I don't need your money. I don't want your money. But if you want to do a deep dive, that's what you need to do. So in America Stonehenge, which is in New Hampshire, our very first film on that is called The Bow Connection. So the whole place was shut down. The whole site, over 100 acres, shut down. Nobody knew what it was, really. And so they started to do some digging, archaeological digging. They found the sacrificial table. Then in a collapsed chamber, buried about 2 feet down, they found a stone. The stone had writing on it. No one could read the writing. Sat in the museum for 11 years. Finally, Barry Fell got word of this. He comes out, looks at that, and goes, that's Iberian Punic. I think I can translate it. To Baal of the Canaanites in dedication. What's that doing in New Hampshire? What is that doing in New Hampshire? To Baal of the Canaanites. And they didn't know what they had. And this is in the film. What's this one, Kelsey? Kelsey's leading me through the museum. Oh, well, that's the 28 day stone. Oh, okay. And here's some artifacts that we found. Okay. And here are the stones that we found with writing. Oh, really? Well, what's that one say? It's all on film. Oh, that one says Tubal the Canaanites and dedication. It's written in Iberian Punic and was translated by the late Barry Fell. And you hear this silence. And I go, what did you just say? I can't believe what I'm listening to. Tubal the Canaanites, they had no idea what they had, with all due respect, but they didn't. So we take the stone out, and I'm sitting there lecturing them about the Nephilim and the Canaanites, and the Canaanites are an overarching name for the Nephilim tribes. And this is what's here in New Hampshire. Oh no, that's a fake, LA. We can't go with that because this is the problem, that academia is held in intellectual concrete. The scientific community is in intellectual concrete. They can't move from the paradigm which they're taught, because if they do, they don't get funding, they don't get tenure, they don't get anything. So nobody goes anywhere. Nobody says anything. I've had people come up to me privately off the record and say, you're making, I won't say where or who or what, but they'll say, LA, you have caused ripples. You are causing ripples throughout academia. Not because of me, because I'm so smart, because he's leading us. The Lord's leading us, and we're doing the work. Somebody else could have done this, but nobody does. Nobody went to Peru and took the samples. Nobody did that. We did it first, and we published it. Nobody cares, or very few people care. And the academics and the scientific community, they really don't care, because it completely blows their whole paradigm right out of the water.
We have a question by our dear friend and coworker on the podcast, Doug Overmeyer. He said, so do you think the cranial deformation was mimicking the cultural memory of these creatures?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're down to the end of the hour, so we got to hurry up. But briefly, if you go and look at Hello Down There, which is a 2024 Super Bowl commercial, it's an ad, Hello Down There. When they finally show the aliens in the ship, guess what? The aliens have elongated skulls. Gee, what a coinkydink. They're not aliens, folks. They're fallen angels. They've been here for thousands of years. They're continuing their dirty work. They built places like Göbekli Tepe, in my opinion. They built what we talked about with the Octagon Mound and the Circle Mound. This is all, there's a phrase I coined, fallen angel technology, Nephilim architecture. And that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, I remember several months ago, we interviewed one of your friends, Dr. Aaron Judkins, on the Göbekli Tepe. All those pictures, including serpents and what could have been worshipped there, and all these sexual deities and rites and performances. It was a very good episode. Yeah, we have less than 10 minutes left, so let's switch to the end of the book, where you are continuing with your expedition in Peru, and you're showing us these beautiful images of so many different megalithic structures which were built on by using technology that wasn't available to the natives, because as you provided on so many photos, we see that the foundation of so many of these buildings were built that not even human hair can go between the two stones. Yet after that, you can see that more primitive technology was used by the natives when they were building on the top of that building, but when they were using their technique and their material. What was the overall conclusion of when it comes to the megalithic research in Peru?
Well, if you go to a place like Sacsayhuaman, and I'll show you what that looks like in a second. When you go to Sacsayhuaman and you're looking at the megaliths which are there, and the guides tell you that, well, the Native Americans really didn't do this. Or I'm sorry, that the Inca built all this. So when you're that's the centerfold right there. That's Sacsayhuaman. Look at the people, right? And I'm going to show you some of the megaliths that are there. So when you're standing there and you look at this, give me a second. Oh. Here we go. So look at this one with Irene. This is Brian's wife. Look at that. See how big the stones are? The quarry is 45 miles away. They're a polygonal shape, and we can't duplicate that. It's andesite, very hard. And we show this in my lectures, where we have a block of andesite stone. I want to thank the gentleman who provided that to me. A block of andesite stone and a copper chisel, brand new copper chisel. He hits the chisel one time, then turns it over and shows that it's already blunt. So this is like, it's like real research. It's like, other people were down there, but no one's ever looked at it from a biblical lens. We're the first people that I'm aware of to go down, and this is way back with our watches. A secret cosmic orb, that's Oya Tintambo right there, and the elongated skull. And that was my late business partner, Richard Shaw. I mean, we broke that story. That blew people away. And that's the thing. I mean, I'll say it again, books are great, studying is great, and there's no end to it. You spend the rest of your life in a library, but you got to get out of a library. You got to go. And, again, the circle mound, that's our work. What we're doing with the octagon mound, that's our work. I mean, I read about the octagon. I did my homework. You got to. Just like when you go to Sacsayhuaman, you got to do your homework. But you're going to hear the party line. Oh, the Inca were master stone builders. Oh, really? Then why do we see this type of stonework and then it disappears and it's never duplicated? And why can't the Inca do it now? Surely if they had the ability to do this, wouldn't they have passed it on? It's not there. Pre-flood, in my opinion. It's pre-flood.
Thank you, Eli. I just want to share a few months ago, I interviewed this Christian archaeologist who spent years at the foot of Mount Hermon. It's a 5-minute clip. Yeah, Mr. Thomas Winder. And I want to show you the type of the bone that he found when it comes to the giants. And there, I think it was a toe bone. And when he showed it, when he showed it to an expert, what he said.
So, just to get back to the bone, here's the big toe. Look at this one. You see the difference in size? This big toe right here happens to be the big toe of one of the giants. Everybody see that? Everybody see the little one next to it? There's a big difference. Matter of fact, the foot surgeon that saw the big toe, he said, "Wow, where'd you find that?" I told him. And he says, "Whoa, that's a big guy." I asked him, "Well, how big you think it is?" He said, "Oh, that's 15 feet, easy." So anyway, there's giants. And there's different terms in the Bible for giants.
I don't want to take much time. I just want to show you this because when I was assessing your material, I was reminded by this archaeologist and our brother in faith, because it nicely connects to what you were talking about. Well, we didn't cover even half of the material in the first volume, so I hope to continue. But what will be your comment on this?
Well, I know Thomas Winder. I consider him a friend. Oh, yeah. I've met him. We've talked. He's been on my show. I know about the big toe. I know about that. He gave us samples of it, but it didn't sequence. So in order, Tom, if you're listening to this, I need the toe, and we can try to coax DNA out of it. So, yeah, I mean, I know, we were set to go to Israel before October 7th. Okay. The morning of October 7th, we were flying. My wife and I were at the Prophecy Watchers Conference. We were flying to Atlanta. And then from Atlanta, the next night, we would be over in Israel. We were leading the Trail of the Nephilim tour. Well, obviously, we didn't go for the obvious reasons. But Thomas was supposed to meet us up at Nimrod's castle and then take us to the Fortress of Baal. I mean, so he's a good friend. I mean, I've only met him once or twice, once at the airport and then once out here in Malibu. He's just a great guy. And yeah.
Yeah, and very friendly and professional. Well, Ellie, thank you so much for your time. I'm a little bit sad we didn't manage to cover a lot. I hope we can continue the next episode, maybe in January or February, based on your schedule and energy, of course. And I'll just give you any amount of time you would like to when it comes to the concluding part of this episode.
Well, just we've scratched the surface. There are 33 films, 14 books. What can I tell you? If you want, it's just you can watch a film for $4.99. Streaming.lamarzulli.net. You want to get the DVDs, lamarzulli.com. So this is groundbreaking material. It's not for the faint of heart. It ties back into the biblical prophetic narrative, and it rewrites history.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I just want to tell to the audience, I had provided a couple of different web links that lead to Mr. L.A. Marzulli's books and videos. So if you like what you saw, if you like what you heard, continue supporting his research ministry, and we'll end this work. LA, thank you so much. Merry Christmas, because I don't think we'll do any episode before next year. And yeah, I will try to contact you again January, February, try to see if we can maybe make an episode.
Sounds good if we're still here.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. May God bless you, and be encouraged in your
Thank you. God bless you too.